I love that song and I love the voices that are in the background. And so now we say good morning to our Facebook family that is joining us. Welcome to the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living. Welcome home. Happy New Year. We greet you in this first Sunday of 2021. And the theme, the overarching theme for the month of January is timeless vision, evolutionary wisdom. And that is also the title for my talk and little presentation today. And so last week, just a little recap of how we ended the year, and we're going to segue into the new year. Um, we talked about magic. The dictionary defines magic as the power of apparently influencing the course of events by using mysterious or supernatural forces. In the science of mind, we teach the right use of the law. And we recognize that when we practice right use of the law, that we don't have to force it, we don't have to cause it to work, we don't have to beg it, we don't have to cajole it. It exists and acts upon every thought that we think. There is the magic. The magic is in every thought that we think. And so setting our intentions to keep going higher, no matter what brings us, no matter what life brings us, the experience that we gain from going higher provides us with greater opportunities to see that life is really beautiful. And the demonstrations are what we call magic. We find magic in ordinary connections and communication. We find magic by being clear about what we want and leaving the how up to spirit. This is the key. And this is the key throughout our entire life. We put into the law of mind. We set our intention. We speak our intention into the law of mind. And we let go of the how. This is the mistake that we make. We try and figure out the how. When we leave the how up to spirit, we become aware of those magical moments of synchronicity, wisdom, clarity, and peace. And by standing firm in our principles and beliefs, the magical life becomes real to everyone who chooses it. And I think that's a nice segue into our time together today and for the next 4 Sundays in January. The first 4 Sundays in January, in most of our Science of Mind communities, we review the introduction to the Science of Mind textbook. It's often referred to as the first 4 chapters. It's actually the introduction in 4 parts. And so this week, part 1, the thing itself, opens our exploration of the ancient and sacred wisdom of science of mind that is drawn upon from the traditions that practice and teach spiritual principles. And these traditions, this timeless wisdom is what reminds us that we stand on giants. And by standing on giants, we glimpse that vision of the new horizons. And so a little bit of a context for today's theme, timeless wisdom and evolutionary wisdom. And the thing itself, I think Ernest Holmes sets the tone for our study of the science of mind as a body of spiritual principles. And he begins with this statement: the study of science of mind is a study of first cause, spirit, mind, and that invisible essence, that ultimate stuff and intelligence from which everything comes, the power back of all creation. This is the thing itself. And the reference for this is in the textbook, Science of Mind textbook, page 26, paragraph 3. The fundamental principles of science of mind are ageless and cross many spiritual traditions. We know this to be true, and we know that in our practice, we're tapping into the infinite eternal, which is God, and has always been and always will be. We have the opportunity to continue evolving and expanding our vision, continually growing into something newer and bigger instead of stagnating. And this is the beauty of practicing our spiritual principles. It provides us a framework, a context, a place of centered being to grow into something newer and bigger, and we don't become stagnated. We are witnessing in this context of growing newer and bigger. We are witnessing the vision that Ernest Holmes wrote about in the opening paragraph of the thing itself. And he writes, "We all look forward to the day when science and religion shall walk hand in hand to the invisible through the visible." This is the connection between science and religion and science and spirituality. And I think this sets the tone for what I like to call our back to basics time together this month. In looking at evolutionary vision, when I think of evolutionary vision and the church or the spiritual center as a place, which is now expanding technology through the use of other medium, I think of this place that we call church as a place that we have counted on for its comforting rhythms and for a vision in times of cultural or social strife, in times of public crisis, in times of deep grief, as well as in times of great celebration. And I think this vision is expressed through our Centers for Spiritual Global Vision, in particular in these three parts that I will mention. We see a world in which every person lives in alignment with his or her highest spiritual principles, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individuality and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. You see a theme recurring here. We're being called higher. We're being called higher in our vision, in our gatherings. And the second part of the global vision that I'm going to highlight today is we envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that represents and honors the interconnectedness of all life. A world where this kinship with all life prospers and connects to the guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. We envision a world where personal responsibility joins with social conscience in every area of the political, corporate, academic, and social sectors, providing sustainable structures to further the emerging global consciousness. This is a powerful vision, and each one of us can play a role in this vision by embracing those parts that really resonate with us as our individual perspective, and also recognizing that as a spiritual community, as a global community, the Centers for Spiritual Living, and our other global partners, those that are practitioners of New Thought principles, those that are practitioners of traditional Christian principles, and those that are practitioners of other disciplines. We envision a world where personal responsibility joins with social consciousness, and there are sustainable structures to further the emerging global consciousness. When I think of timeless wisdom, and again, connecting it to the church or the spiritual center as a physical place, now expanded via technology, I think of it as a place where we have counted on for its comforting rhythms and vision in times of cultural or social strife, in times of public crisis, in times of deep grief, as well as times of great celebration. And what I offer to you this morning is that both evolutionary vision and timeless wisdom are interdependent. They are not mutually exclusive, they are interdependent. In our Declaration of Principles, our organizational statement of belief, um, Ernest Holmes describes these timeless principles. And the wisdom that he described it in are three excerpts, again, that I will share with you from our Declaration of Principles. We believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause. This one, going back to the thing itself, this invisible essence, manifests itself in and through all creation, that power that is back of creation, but it is not absorbed by its creation. And this statement has always fascinated me. And it creates that place of magic and wonder in my own mind when I think about this invisible essence that manifests itself in and through all of creation, but is not absorbed by its creation. It's not consumed by what it creates. It continues to create because it is the manifest universe, that which is our reality. It is the body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. And he amplifies it in this statement. We believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in everyone, and that all people are incarnations of the one Spirit. And when I was reading this and studying this particular point, I had a flashback to my days growing up in a traditional Baptist church. And this statement would be a tremendous point for a call and response. The minister would say, we believe in the incarnation of the Spirit in everyone. And the congregation would respond, everyone. And then the minister would say, and that all people, and the congregation would respond, all people, and this little cadence would get going. Are incarnations of the one Spirit, and just a reminder of the oneness of all life. And then Ernest writes, we believe in the eternality, the immortality, and the continuity of the individual soul forever and ever expanding. Here's the expansion again, the growth and expansion. Let us be ever mindful to engage in the practice of spiritual humility. Hear me on this one. Let us be ever mindful to engage in the practice of spiritual humility and not spiritual arrogance as the pathway of evolution. It's easy to get absorbed in reciting spiritual principles, like some of our traditional friends in the Christian tradition can recite Bible verses all day long. In our recitation of spiritual principles, let us not forget to embody them. You know, it's not what we talk about that people judge us by or people will learn from us by. It is how we live our life experiences, how we live these principles. Ernest Holmes places it nicely in his famous Sermon by the Sea, where he writes, and I would desire that in our teaching, there should never be any arrogance, for it always indicates spiritual immaturity to me. Others will rise who have known more than we do. They won't be better or worse. They will be different and know more than we do. And that's because evolution is forward. And so I just invite us to be mindful in our conversations and to notice the subtle ways that spiritual arrogance can kind of weave itself into the conversation in our spiritual communities and also in our movement. You know, let us just be mindful that we're called to be humble. We're called to live the principles that we believe in. We're called to embody them so that we evolve into our greater yet to be. There's something about threes this morning. I have three illustrations now that will amplify this point of view. The first one is to honor. We are centered in timeless wisdom. We steep ourselves in the study and the embodiment of the wisdom of all faiths and all cultures to allow ourselves a broader awareness and care of the great reality of life. This great reality of life expresses itself in the wisdom of all faiths and all cultures. We honor the ancestry of our own teaching by acknowledging the synthesis of universal teachings embodied in them. And I think for those of us who have been studying science of mind for a while, we have been exposed to some very great teachers within our own movement. Uh, I'm thinking of, I grew up on the United side of the house, but I'm thinking of the RSI side of the house, the great wisdom of Raymond Charles Barker, the great wisdom of Kennedy Schultz, the great wisdom of our own local Dr. J. Scott Neal. You know, we have grand foundations to stand upon. We honored that ancestry, and I think we embodied this in a way with our Christmas Eve celebration of light, where we honored the timeless vision and the evolutionary wisdom of several cultures expressing their light traditions. And I am very grateful to the members of our spiritual community, along with our friends from other CSL communities who co-created and celebrated the experience. We permitted ourselves to learn, to have fun, to regain our joy, and to play. The second illustration is open. Without the grounding of timeless wisdom, we cannot be open to the evolutionary phase that is always calling us inward to go deeper into that deeper part of ourselves and to go upward to the greater reality of our individual and collective evolutionary consciousness. Notice the process. We go in, we go deep, and then we go up. We go in, we go deep, and then we go up. Ernest Holmes offers this example of open. He writes, "We cannot say one thought is creative while another is not. All thought is creative according to the nature, impulse, and emotion or conviction behind the thought." The reference for this is our Science of Mind textbook, page 30, paragraph 3. We prepare ourselves by cultivating the consciousness of humility to be open to the new thing God is doing in, as, and through us and through all beings. I enjoy listening to gospel music, and there's a song that made the charts last year by artist Brian Courtney Wilson. And some of the lyrics in there are, "God is doing great things." I think the title of that particular track is, "He that has begun a great work in you." And so we know that God is doing great things. God is always doing great things in us, as us, and through all beings. And so we are called to let go of our spiritual arrogance and be able to perceive beyond our current perspective. Again, we go in, we go deep, and we go up. And the third point for illustration is vision. There are new thinkers and new spiritual teachers who know more than we. I see that just within my own family. I saw it within my grandchildren, and I'm now seeing in the great-grandchildren. They come here knowing so much more than we did when we incarnated. These new thinkers and new spiritual teachers have experienced God in a deeper and more profound way than we have. We open up to the wisdom of our time that expands on and amplifies the teachings of our movement in ways that we could have never imagined. And I just witnessed that this past year within our own Centers for Spiritual Living, and I salute our home office for amplifying the various ways that we can show up virtually and continue the connection and the continuity of spiritual community and in our study and embodiment of spiritual principles. They've done this in ways that I would never have imagined that would have been done. Vision requires transformation. We often hear the phrase, new year, new you. New year, new you. But how do we make that happen? It all has to do with the difference between change and transformation. Things change all the time. We change our clothes. We change our presidents. We change our laws. We change our habits. But none of these changes have a lasting impact if we have not transformed. Transformation is another fancy word for change. And what it requires is that we rethink what is valuable in our life. In the Bible, in the book of Ephesians, the 3rd chapter and the 20th verse, this is what is written. There's a power at work within us that is able to accomplish abundantly far more than we can think or imagine. And so as we reflect on the thing itself, this first cause, that which is in back of all creation, this thing itself, and we recognize that we are embraced by timeless wisdom, and we are lifted and elevated through the evolutionary vision. And so our call to action this morning, again, the number 3, be humble, be open, resolve to evolve. And I've asked the tech team to drop this, this call to action into the chat for us. And then our one sentence affirmation as we bring this part of our service to a close. Steeped in the wisdom of the ages, I resolve to evolve. And I've asked the tech team to drop this into the chat also. So our affirmation that you can carry with you through the week is steeped in the wisdom of the ages, I resolve to evolve. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Zoom or may not totally be comfortable with it, if you click on the chat window at the bottom of your screen or on the side of your screen, wherever it is, you will see 3 points that will, 3 little dots that will come up, and that will allow you to save the chat. And that way you will have the call to action and the one sentence affirmation available to you. So now I invite us to pray together. And as we go within to that secret place of the Most High, that secret dwelling place of the Most High, I invite us, especially this upcoming week, probably now more so than ever, to be in prayer for our country, to be in prayer for unity and spiritual discernment in all of our affairs, for harmony among our leaders, those who are elected as well as those who are self-declared, for kindness within our hearts, remembering that we are the place where God shows up. And so this is what I know to be true, that there is only one life, there's only one power, there's only one presence, the thing itself, God, source, consciousness, creative intelligence, all the various names that are used to describe the indescribable. I know that I am one with this thing itself. And I know that each one that is joining us this morning via Zoom, via Facebook Live, or will be watching the replay, I know that each one is an individualized expression of the thing itself. And so I speak my word this morning for our country, for our United States of America. I speak a word for unity. I speak a word for dropping the fight that has been created by artificial divisions and artificial points of view that place one as being right and everything else as being wrong. Recognizing that in the mind of God, there is no right or no wrong. There is just that which is. And that which is the presence of spirit revealing itself in and through us as individualized expressions of itself. And so in dropping the fight, we join arm in arm to march together and to recognize, to learn what it is that makes each one of us unique in our own individual way. And as we cultivate relationships, as we grow deeper in getting to know one another on a soul level, moving beyond the superficial, then we go in and we go deep. And out of that depth becomes a higher awareness that we can agree to disagree. We can agree that we have different points of view. We can agree that we have different perspectives. And we can march arm in arm in unity, seeking a mutual agreement that creates our vision of a world that works for everyone. And it creates this global vision of sustainable resources that are available to everyone. This is the vision that I see not only for our country, especially for our country, but it is the vision that I see for the world. And I know that as we raise our individual consciousness to a higher vibration, that everyone and everything around us has no choice but to level up. And so as we level up, and as the songwriter once said, as we dig a little deeper into God's love, we come to realize that love and only love prevails. I bless the prayer request that we hold within our hearts. Those that have been spoken to a practitioner, those that have been spoken to a confidant, knowing that the answer is yes. And I know that the demonstrations are already appearing as manifestations, as those magical manifestations in our individual and collective lives. And so I declare and affirm right livelihood, right and perfect housing, right enjoyment, right play, right fun, right abundance, everything that the heart desires. Declare it. Make your demand known into the universe, and then let go of how the universe is going to work it out. Stand back and see the glory of God reveal itself as those magical demonstrations in our lives. And for this and so much more, I give great thanks. I give thanks for the word spoken. I give thanks for this time together. I give thanks for knowing that everything is just as it should be. Everything is just as it should be. And so I release all of this into that law, which always says yes. And I just allow it to be. And if any of this resonates with you, if any of this is true for you, I invite you to affirm it as we say, and so it is. And it is now time for us to engage in the law of circulation by sharing our good, by sharing our bounty, by sharing our resources. We have an affirmation of abundance, and I invite you to just read this along with me. I recognize the presence of God within as the source of my abundance. Out of my abundance consciousness flows everything I could desire in life. With gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. I release this visible substance as an outer symbol of my inner supply into the physical world. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness. And there are ways to share with the center. And I believe at this point that many of you are familiar with it. You may mail your donations to the center. The address is on your screen. You may make a secure donation through our website, and the link to that is on our screen. And you may also text to 831 246 9694. We thank you for your continual support of the center that allows us to continue to develop programs and services that connect us, that keep us in the flow of the all good of life. And so we now say good morning to our Facebook Live family. Thank you for joining us. And be sure to come back next week, where we will continue our theme of timeless vision and evolutionary wisdom. And the focus will be grounded beyond the beginning. And so we love you. Let's everyone say, let's do a wave to our Facebook family, and we will see you next week.